got to know what you're doing, though. And I want to pick your brain about that in a little bit.
Well, two of our big portfolios from the last year and the last 18 months have done. One was a multi-million-dollar portfolio, and the other one was more of a six-figure portfolio. And both of them have performed at or above 100% ROI.
Isn't that unbelievable? I mean, you talk to people outside the area, and they don't believe it, do they? When you first talk to them about it?
No, and it's and these are not buy and holds. This involves a lot of flips and a lot of short-term flips and a lot of wholesaling of deals. In addition to none of these were holding on to properties. They were all moving properties, and that's one of the things we do. Is this is all I do all day long. So it doesn't ever. People say, you've got a property, it's coming along at 25% ROI for you. It's got stable tenants. Why don't you hold on to it? I'm like, because if I roll that money, I can make 3-digit returns on that money. So it doesn't make any sense for me ever to hold a 25% ROI deal. But it does make sense for me to hand that deal off to someone who wants to be long term. And that's where the equity funding comes in, and the private equities and the partnering on deals and the equity sharing deals come into play. We're doing those now. We've got a couple of them in play that are looking to be very successful, and we're really looking to build a long-term portfolio in bread and butter suburbs like Harper Woods. We just bought one in Allen Park, and in the nicer neighborhoods of Detroit that we're going to buy and hold. In addition to that, a small part of that portfolio, the frame in the rough zip code on the good block in Detroit, which has the strong, 30, 40%, 50% ROI on the rental.
You got to be really careful with those, though, right? I mean, that sounds like it's really hit or miss.
Well, yes and no. So you're getting that kind of ROI because you're into it for so little money. We can always flip them out and wholesale them at a small loss. If we see, one of the ways we mitigate the risk is by buying numbers of properties. So if you've got, the way I look at it is you got 10 properties, okay, in Detroit in bad zip codes. You buy in the best streets with a couple little ladies on there who live there forever, and you drive down the block and you just feel comfortable on it. It's a good block. So you buy on those blocks, and you can buy the frame houses $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and get renters in them that are, you rent them for below market or even a little below market, and you get people in them that you hand pick that are going to stay in the property for a while, and aren't looking for, I can fog a mirror and sign my name, so get me in something. I've got a pulse. Where's my property?
So you're talking sometimes a year payback on some of these then?
Yeah, we like to stay at 12 to 18 months ROI. So, I mean, that's the ideal situation. So anyway, 10 of those, okay? One of them, catastrophic loss. You're going to have it be, and I'm not talking catastrophic loss fire, where nobody's hurt and you've got a claim. I'm talking catastrophic loss where the people just move out and disappear, and you're left with a shell of a house because 24 hours or 48 hours later, one of the neighbors calls you and says, hey, the house is, door's wide open and those people left, and you go there and everything's gone, including the kitchen sink. And in a $10,000 house, it doesn't even make sense to go in and rehab that. So you just wholesale it off and move on. So you got one catastrophic loss. Then you got 3 of the 10 that are left. They're professional squatters living in there. Even when you hand pick them, you still get the people who are just pros at working the business, and they get in and they stay there, and they come up with the first month and the security deposit, and they pay rent for a month or two, and then they default, or they default right off first payment default. So those people, we try to buy them out. I'm like, look, you're going to leave one way or another. So I can either buy you out and you can move on to your next property, or we go through the courts. I'm the last friendly face you're going to see. How do you want to handle this? I'll leave right now.
That's a great approach. What's your hit rate on that?
Greater than 90% of the people don't end up evicted.
Outstanding.
Yeah, why would you get evicted? You're going to move anyway. It's going to cost me $1,000. See, the thing is, people get emotional about it. They're like, I'm not paying that scumbag who stole my house any money. I'd rather give the money to the attorney and have him trash my house. Okay, we're throttle back, where this is a business.
It's a business decision, exactly.
So then 3 out of the 10 that are left are people that are just people trying to get by and sometimes have a little struggles. Quite frankly, most of my life, I've fallen into that category where you pay your rent every month, but sometimes you're a month behind. Sometimes you fall 2 months behind, but then you catch up. And then 3 out of the 10 are people that pay their rent on time and are concerned about making sure that the rent's in. They pay online through the portals, so you don't have to chase them at all. But it balances out. You buy 10 of those properties, you're into it for $100,000 in a portfolio. To have a portfolio like that, or $200,000 or $300,000, depending on the neighborhoods and the houses you're looking at. but you're mitigating your risk over all those properties, and you're also, the thing we're doing is a little bit differently now than a lot of the other investors do in Detroit, is we're bringing people to partner with us at the wholesale or below wholesale level that I buy at. They're going to come in with me and buy with me, and we share profits. Whereas the model that pretty much everybody else I see using is, um, they buy the property, they fix it up, they stabilize it, they get it in management, they get a tenant into it, and they got $25,000 into a property, and they're selling it for $35,000, $40,000. Well, the problem is that the property is only worth $20,000 to $25,000. So you're selling it for $40,000, and yeah, you can get that sale and say, oh yeah, it's worth that, but it's worth that until the tenant moves out, and then you've got a nice brick house on a nice block that's worth 20 grand. Well, their LTV then isn't, I mean, they're into it for half. They should be into it for double, or at least, a basis. So it doesn't work if there's any bumps in the road or any hiccup. No, but if we get into that house at 20 grand and that's our all-in number, see, what I've been doing is I partner. Say, Dennis, you and I decided to partner on something. Okay, you put up all the money. I get fees. I have property management in place that does it. I make money on the buy. I make money on the sell. All this is disclosed. But at the end of the day, we partner on a deal and we figure out our percentage. It could be 50-50, it could be 75-25. It depends on the neighborhood and the house and the deal you and I make, and our negotiation back and forth. But we come up with a number, and we form an LLC and a partnership, and you and I own that partnership based on our splits. Then you loan the partnership the money that we need to operate, to purchase the property, to stabilize the property, and to cover a management reserve. As soon as we sell that property, you get paid back, and then we split what's left.
Nice. That's a great model. That's the first time I've heard about that. Did you guys invent this basically, or how did you come up with
I
it?
don't think so. I think it's actually a pretty old model. The only difference is the fact that you're putting up the money, you're lending the money, and then you're splitting the profits. It's really just it's an old school equity split. Like, call the chiropractor, call the dentist, call the doctor.
It makes perfect sense though. They're protected because they've got the lien on the property, first lien on the property, right?
And they're protected because they're not into a $25,000 property for $45,000. They're into a $25,000 property for $25,000. Then we either hold that property, and if we're going to hold it, then we need to pay some kind of return on the loan back to you. So we figure out what that percentage is, and base it on, we can base it on, LIBOR or COSI or whatever. I mean, it's, we figure out a number though. We pick that rabbit out of a hat and say, okay, it's going to be 7%, and that's the debt service payment. The property is managed and pays the debt service back, and then we can hold it for a year, 2, 3, and we see what happens. It's a good time to buy and hold in Detroit and Detroit Metro right now. So as long as you're happy with the limping return, 7, 8, 10%, 2, 3 years down the road, we've got appreciation where you're not trying to catch up on appreciation, where you've paid $50,000 for a $25,000 house. It's going to take you 3, 4, 5 years before you even get back to your basis.
Break even, right?
Right. Every day we move forward here, when the market increases, our value is increasing.
What kind of returns are you talking about then to somebody that does something like that? So they get the debt service at 7, 8%, whatever you negotiate, and then what's the return? What's the split then? How does that all work?
Lunch, dinner, conversations, phone calls, emails. I mean, typically we're looking at, like I said, 50 to 80% would be my take of it, and then 20 to 50% is their take. But you're looking at 20-50% of what could be, 50 to 100%. So it ends up being solid double-digit numbers.
And then you're getting paid because are you getting fees along the way as well? I mean, so they're getting debt service and you're getting property management fees. So you guys are both whole in terms of operating costs, right?
Well, I also get a commission on the buy, a commission on the sale. Look, I'm in this to make money. This
Absolutely. Right.
But at the end of the day, these investments on an aggregate make sense. And, that's one of the things is, if you want to do one, we can do one, but we're not going to do it in a bad area of the city. We're going to do one in Allen Park, for example. If you really are committed to this, we need to commit to like 3 to 5 at a minimum.
I mean, that's only where the diversification approach that you're using works. Is if you got to have multiples, then, right?
Yes.
Sense. And it's a great way to diversify too. I mean, with the houses that cheap, the bad area strategy, it sounds like it's a winner.
Well, I look at it this way. I mean, if you can make 30% ROI consistently on properties in rougher areas, and you do 2 out of 3 of them and you're successful on, and the third one is just a wash, you're making 20% ROI. which is not bad anywhere, any day.